Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Snowpiercer story, a series started by me, covering the characters and story plot of TNT Drama's adaptation of French painter and illustrator Jean-Marc Rochet's comic series Les Transpersonnage. On today's episode, we'll be covering the rise of Melanie Cavill, head of hospitality and engineer aboard Snowpiercer. Let's get into it. Melanie Cavill was born on a farm in Pennsylvania, presumably sometime in the mid-70s, making her close to around 50 in the series. At around age 17, Melanie met Joseph Wilford, who we covered in episode 1, and quickly became his associate and student. Melanie began by designing most of Snowpiercer's systems and cars, eventually becoming Snowpiercer's one true designer. Melanie would eventually leave Wilford Industries, however, after having her daughter, Alexandra Cavill, whose father remains unknown. However, she returned shortly after to continue working on Snowpiercer. Upon departure, Melanie insisted Snowpiercer's departure be delayed several minutes because her parents hadn't shown up with her daughter. In the end, Melanie made the decision to depart early, leaving Wilford and her daughter behind. While departing, Melanie repeatedly stated how sorry she was, believing she had left Alex to die in the freeze. Melanie's career from this point to when the show takes place, presumably 2022, is relatively unanswered as the show picks up 7 years after departure, and we don't see anything from the points in between departure and the 7 years. However, it's safe to assume that it is relatively calm, excluding the two revolts that happened in her time aboard Snowpiercer. However, her career really kicked off when she had to enlist a passenger from the tail to assist in a new murder aboard the train. This individual is established to be Andre Layton, a former homicide detective. Layton would eventually go on to not only solve the murder, but figure out that Mr. Wilford was not aboard the train, and attempt to use this information to blackmail Melanie, who, in an attempt to counter this, orders him to be placed in the drawers, a sort of cryostasis or jail aboard the train as an alternative to the temporary cells in the brakeman's garrisons. Following this, L.J. Folger, a first-class passenger and later revealed as an accomplice to the murder, is put on a tribunal, in which she is sentenced but pardoned by Melanie because she knows that Melanie is Wilford. Later, L.J. tells her parents, who in turn tell all of First Class. Melanie is eventually imprisoned in the hospitality radio room. It is at this point that Melanie presses a button which sends a message to the engine, notifying Ben and Javi, two other engineers, to lock down the engine as First begins to mob it. At the end of this incident, Melanie relinquishes control of Snowpiercer to Andre Layton and the tail. However, shortly after this, Snowpiercer picks up the signal of Big Alice. Turns out Ben betrayed Melanie back when they were made aware of the 12% decrease in power and 36 battery car loss, purposely steering Snowpiercer towards Big Alice in the belief that she will have supplies for them, ignoring Melanie's warnings that it's Wilford aboard Big Alice. Upon Big Alice's hijacking Snowpiercer, Melanie and Ben prepare to head out to investigate it. However, enraged at Ben's irrational decision to allow Big Alice to catch up, she cuts his oxygen supply and heads out alone. As she nears the docking car of Big Alice, Wilford's uplink to Snowpiercer allows him to engage the brakes, causing Melanie, who previously undid her safety buckle to move to another car, to fall off the side of a car and land in a snow pile. After Snowpiercer comes to a complete stop, Melanie awakes beside Big Alice's control car slash locomotive to find her entrance hatch opening. Melanie, knowing what this means, runs up train to Big Alice's docking car and cuts the uplink. This gives Snowpiercer's engine helm and life support systems back. She also plants a sticky charge on the docking mechanism of Big Alice's connector to permanently lock it together. To permanently lock together Snowpiercer and Big Alice should Wilford try to disconnect as an attempt to leave Snowpiercer dead. Side note, I am so sorry. I am very nervous about this. Melanie is under the docking car as the trains begin moving. She crawls out, and the wheels of the train snip her suit. The cold overcomes her, and she sort of passes out. She awakes to snow falling on her helmet, which should be impossible. As she gets up in a hurry to take a snow sample, she notices Big Alice's control car speeding by her. Being that this is the final car on the train, she quickly takes her sample and just barely jumps aboard, where she is then ordered to strip so she can be disinfected. Upon changing into a pair of clothes and exiting the cold lock, she is greeted by Kevin, a former hospitality acquaintance, and is then tased by him. He remarks, "That's for leaving us to die." As Melanie is marched to the top floor where Wilford's penthouse and control area is, she is greeted by her daughter, who she presumed dead. However, Alex Alex was raised by Wilford after she was left by Melanie, so she is apathetic when her mother comes in front of her, remarking, I am distinctly underwhelmed, as Melanie cries. She then goes on to berate. She then goes on to accuse and berate Melanie. Oh, and she then goes on to accuse and berate Melanie. Ugh. Melanie is then imprisoned and thrown in Big Alice's brig. After some in and outs, she is returned to Snowpiercer after the tail trades her for Kevin, who was previously kidnapped. She hands over her snow sample to Javi and has him analyze it, giving her and Ben a few moments together. However, this sauce does not last long. After sort of building a relationship with her daughter after 7 years, they discover that life can be supported and decide to send Melanie to the Breslau Research Station, located in the Rocky Mountains. Melanie solemnly accepts because she knows that this is a power play by Wilford, a last-ditch attempt to get rid of her, which later is proven correct when she is to be picked up and watches in shock as Big Alice speeds past her, wheels flaming as Alex bangs on Big Alice's rear window. In this scene, it is told that while Snowpiercer ended up braking to stop for Melanie, Wilford had Big Alice go into full throttle, almost derailing the train. Season 3 is relatively devoid of Melanie, as she hasn't been picked up by the trains. However, she returns around episode 7, being found in the track scaler, not designed to withstand the freeze. However, she managed to keep herself alive by manually entering a state of suspension for months without end. However, after being picked up and let out of the second-class MedSec area, during a party celebrating the possibility of life in the Horn of Africa, she rats out the live New Eden, turning almost the entire train against Layton and the tail. However, Layton manages to calm the crowd. Soon after, Melanie and Layton end up tricking Wilford into relinquishing control of the train and banish him to the track scaler, like Melanie was. After this, Layton and Melanie strike a deal. Everyone who doesn't believe in New Eden and wishes to remain on Snowpiercer will go to the forward half of the train and stay with Melanie. And those who wish to go with Layton will head towards the back half of the train to go to New Eden. The train splits around the middle of AgSec, and the final scene of Melanie is of her and Ben in the engine together. In the end, Melanie Cavill is a cunning and smart individual, capable of outsmarting even the strongest of enemies. However, this comes sort of at a cost, as she tends to manipulate people for her own gain, like Layton and Ben. So, what do you think about this episode of the Snowpiercer story? Let me know what you think down below. Remember to like and subscribe for more episodes. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next